The night was thick with fog, rolling in like ghost smoke over the hollowed bones of Pittsburgh's old industrial district. Steel mills and abandoned warehouses stood like rusted skeletons against the skyline, their windows blown out, their interiors long since swallowed by dust and time. It was the kind of place where the streetlights blinked reluctantly, casting pale halos on cracked asphalt, and the silence was too complete, broken only by the distant groan of freight trains. Officer Daniel Mercer sat alone in his patrol cruiser on the edge of the 19th Precinct's jurisdiction, the heater humming low, the police radio crackling with static and dispatch chatter. He checked his watch, 2:17 a.m., and took another slow sip of the gas station coffee he'd picked up at the start of his shift. Bitter. Burnt. Perfect. The call came in like a whisper. Dispatch to Unit 47. Possible break-in at 1128 Sycamore. Unsecured warehouse. No backup in range. Mercer flicked on the lights. Unit 47 responding. 1128 Sycamore. He knew the building, an old shipping depot boarded up since the early 2000s. He chased a few teens out of there before, maybe a couple of squatters. Nothing serious. Still, the way the dispatcher's voice tightened around the words, something felt off. When Mercer arrived, the warehouse loomed out of the fog like a forgotten temple. The main entrance was cracked open, the chain lock dangling uselessly. He drew his flashlight, radioed his location, and stepped inside. His boots echoed on the cement as he moved cautiously through the vast emptiness. Dust spiraled in his flashlight beam. Then, a noise, something shuffled in the shadows near the loading bay. "Pittsburgh PD," Mercer called out. "Step out where I can see you." No answer. He crept closer. Then, movement. A figure darted between two shipping crates. "Stop!" Mercer shouted. He broke into a sprint, catching the figure in the cone of light. A young black male, late teens, hoodie, hands raised halfway. "I didn't do anything," the boy cried. "I'm not." Mercer tackled him hard, the two of them slamming into the ground with a sickening thud. The boy screamed in pain. Mercer straddled his back, yanking his arms behind him with force that went beyond necessity. "Stop resisting," Mercer shouted. "I'm not resisting," the boy sobbed. The scuffle ended in silence. Mercer stood, panting. The boy, barely conscious, lay crumpled on the ground. Mercer reached for his body cam. It was off. He froze. Back at the station, Officer Mercer filed his report. Suspect attempted to flee, resisted arrest, required force to subdue. He left out the blood, left out the way the kid's head struck the floor, left out the part where he turned off the camera. The suspect's name was Jalen Brooks. 19. No priors. No weapon. He was brought to Allegheny General with a fractured skull, 2 broken ribs, and a ruptured spleen. He was unconscious for 4 days. By then, the photo had already gone viral. A nurse's aide had snapped a picture, Jalen's face swollen beyond recognition, his eyes nearly sealed shut with bruises. She uploaded it anonymously with the caption, "This is what resisting arrest looks like." Within hours, justice for Jalen trended on every major platform. By day 3, there were protests outside the precinct. By day 5, the mayor issued a statement. And by the end of the week, Officer Daniel Mercer was placed on administrative leave. Detective Carla Ruiz from Internal Affairs took the file off the stack. "Another one," she muttered. But this one was going to be different. The crowd outside the 19th Precinct swelled with each passing day. Cardboard signs bobbed like angry waves. Protect and serve who? Justice for Jalen. Cameras don't lie. Cops do. The chants echoed down Sycamore Avenue, clashing against riot shields and helmeted officers. The smell of smoke, incense, sweat, and burned trash lingered in the air like an omen. From the top floor of Internal Affairs, Detective Carla Ruiz watched through the blinds, her fingers tight around a paper cup of black coffee gone cold. Her phone buzzed. Again and again. Reporters, civil rights attorneys, politicians. Everyone wanted blood or headlines. Or both. "Ruiz," said Captain Vernon, stepping in. His voice was weary, but his eyes sharp. "This one's a powder keg. Handle it carefully." "I always do," Ruiz replied, not turning around. "No, you dig too deep. Just clear the complaint and move on." Carla turned now. "If this is what it looks like, sir, Mercer's not walking away clean." The captain stared at her for a long beat, then left. Jalen Brooks woke up on day 6. The hospital room was sterile and humming with low machines. His mother, a small woman with tired eyes, sat at his bedside, clutching his hand. "Ma," he rasped. She leaned forward, tears falling freely. I'm here, baby." Jalen tried to sit up. Pain shot through his ribs. Panic overtook him. "Where am I? What happened?" "You were hurt," she said gently. "By the police." Jalen blinked. The memories came back like a flood. The fog, the blinding flashlight, the voice screaming, "Stop resisting." The cracking sound of his skull hitting the concrete. He turned his head to the corner of the room, where a tall man in a charcoal suit stood silently. "Detective Ruiz." "Mr. Brooks," she said, stepping forward. "I'm here to investigate what happened to you that night." Jalen looked away. "Will it matter?" Ruiz knelt beside the bed. "If you tell me the truth, it might matter more than you think." Mercer sat in his kitchen, lights off, watching the news loop on mute. His wife, Sandra, stood behind him, arms crossed. "You haven't said a word since they suspended you." "There's nothing to say," Mercer muttered. "They're showing his face every hour, Danny. They're calling you a monster." He flinched. "I did my job." "You turned off your camera." "It glitched." Sandra stared at him. "Did you beat that boy?" Mercer stood slowly. He resisted. "That's not what people are saying. I don't give a damn what people are saying." She looked at him like she didn't recognize the man she married. And maybe in that moment she didn't. Meanwhile, Ruiz reviewed Mercer's personnel file. At first glance, it was clean, commendations, letters of praise, excellent evaluations. But deeper down, in the sealed section reserved for internal-only reviews, the cracks began to show. 3 prior complaints, all excessive force, all dismissed. One filed by a college student in South Oakland, another by a homeless veteran near Station Square. The third, a juvenile, 16, arrested for graffiti, left with a broken wrist. Ruiz jotted names, dates, locations, patterns. She stared at Mercer's badge photo. Cold eyes, set jaw, the kind of man who played by his own rules because the system let him. Not anymore. The real break came from phone. Ruiz received a call from a technician at the hospital's evidence intake. "We ran an inventory of the victim's belongings. There was a phone in his backpack. Cracked, but still booted up. Jalen's phone. Most of the files were intact." Ruiz opened the media folder. One video, time-stamped at 2:19 a.m., the night of the incident. She pressed play. The screen shook violently at first, then focused. Jalen must have hit record and stuffed the phone in his pocket. It captured muffled sounds, footsteps, shouting, scuffling. Then it got clear. Mercer's voice. "You think you're going to get away with breaking in? Huh? I told you to get down." Jalen's voice, trembling. "I didn't break in. I swear to God. Please stop. Mercer, shut your mouth." Then the unmistakable sound of impact. Flesh against concrete. Jalen's cries cut short by another blow. The phone went dark. Ruiz sat back in her chair, her pulse pounding. It wasn't just use of force. It was rage. Personal, sadistic, and now documented. Day 9. Press conference. District Attorney Lisa Nolan stepped up to the podium, cameras flashing like a strobe. Effective immediately, Officer Daniel Mercer is under investigation for use of excessive force in the case of Jalen Brooks. Pending further review, we are pursuing potential criminal charges, including aggravated assault. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Ruiz stood at the back, arms folded. The reporter from Channel 5 leaned into the mic. "Are you suggesting this was a racially motivated assault?" Nolan paused. "We are investigating all factors." The reporter pushed. "What about the audio file? Is it real?" The DA hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, and it is disturbing." Back at Mercer's house, someone threw a brick through the window. It landed in the living room with a crash, shattering glass and splintering wood. On the brick, black marker scrawled one word: "Murderer." Mercer stood over it, breathing hard. Sandra screamed. The baby monitor crackled from the other room. Outside, the night pulsed with sirens. 6 weeks later, the courtroom was standing room only. Marble walls, vaulted ceiling, a jury box full of blank faces. Cameras were banned inside, but the noise outside was deafening. Journalists, protesters, and live streamers formed a wall of bodies and signs. Phones stayed raised like weapons. Everything was broadcast now. This wasn't just a trial. It was an exorcism. Officer Daniel Mercer sat at the defense table, sharp in his suit, jaw locked tight. His lawyer, Mitchell Hanley, gray hair, Harvard-trained, expensive flip-through notes. The prosecution sat opposite, District Attorney Lisa Noland in her second chair, a young, fierce-eyed woman named Brianna Shaw. Judge Reynolds entered. The room rose. Court is now in session. Opening statements. Nolan stood first. Calm, controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are here to witness something rare: accountability." Jalen Brooks was 19 years old. He was unarmed. He committed no crime. He was beaten nearly to death by someone sworn to protect him. That man, Officer Daniel Mercer, turned off his body camera and turned a blind eye to justice. But today you will not. Hanley's turn. He smiled with practiced sympathy. This is not a case of brutality. This is a case of bias against police, against law and order. My client responded to a suspected break-in alone late at night. The suspect resisted arrest. Officer Mercer acted within reason. The prosecution will try to dazzle you with outrage. But this is not about emotion. This is about facts. The jury watched, silent, still unsure. Testimony: Jalen Brooks. He took the stand slowly, one crutch supporting him. The scars were fading, but not the tremor in his voice. "I was just trying to stay warm," he said. "It was freezing that night. I went into the warehouse to rest. I wasn't stealing anything. I didn't even know the cops were coming." "Nolan, what happened when Officer Mercer found you?" Jalen swallowed. "I told him I wasn't doing anything. I had my hands up. He tackled me anyway. Slammed me down hard. I couldn't breathe. He kept hitting me." "What were his exact words?" "He said, 'You think you're going to get away with this?' Then he called me." Jalen hesitated, his voice cracking. "He called me a lying little thug." In the gallery, someone gasped. A juror flinched. Hanley cross-examined hard, trying to poke holes. "You ran from him, didn't you?" "I took one step. Then I stopped." "Isn't it true you have a cousin in a gang?" "Objection." Nolan snapped. "Irrelevant." Sustained. Jalen's eyes met Mercer's for a brief, flickering moment. Hatred and fear. Surprise evidence. The audio file. Ruiz was called to testify. "Detective, describe what you heard on the victim's recovered phone." She recited it verbatim. Mercer's voice. The cries. The slamming impact. "Is there any indication Jalen was resisting?" "No. In fact, it's clear he was begging." The courtroom was silent. The sound of truth was deafening. Witness for the defense, Officer David Lang. A 20-year veteran, Lang took the stand to defend Mercer's character. He's a good cop. I've ridden with him. He never lost control. But Ruiz recognized Lang. She had flagged his name months ago in another inquiry. She leaned over to Nolan. Ask about the Harper Street case. Nolan nodded. Officer Lang, do you recall an incident from 2 years ago involving a man named Terrence Harper? Lang stiffened. Yes. Mercer arrested him. Excessive force complaint. You were there. The case was sealed. Lang's lips twitched. It was dismissed because Mercer destroyed the security footage. Isn't that right? Lang's silence said everything. Break in the case. A whistleblower emerges. During the second week of trial, an anonymous email hit Ruiz's inbox. Subject line, Mercer's not who you think. Attached, a series of internal memos. Old, dated back 5 years. Mercer had been transferred from another precinct under quiet terms. A hush settlement. A juvenile suspect hospitalized during an arrest, just like Jalen. Ruiz's hands trembled as she printed the pages. One name kept recurring. Captain Vernon. He'd buried complaints, protected Mercer, pushed them through IA with one goal. Don't let the department take the hit. This went deeper than one officer. It was a system of silence. The breaking point. Day 14. The prosecution recalled Ruiz as a rebuttal witness. She laid it all out. The memos, the sealed complaints, the prior victims, the pattern. In your opinion, Detective Ruiz, was this an isolated incident? No. Officer Mercer has a history, and people helped cover it up. The courtroom exploded. Cameras outside caught the crowd roaring. Protesters shouted into megaphones. Some cried. Inside, Mercer's mask cracked. He whispered something to Hanley. No one heard what, but the way his eyes darted, he knew it was slipping away. Outside the courtroom, chaos. That night, the courthouse was tagged with graffiti. The system is guilty too. News anchors debated every second on air. TikTokers live-streamed summaries with millions of views. On Reddit, conspiracy threads popped up. Who else was being protected? Were there more victims? For many, it wasn't about one boy anymore. It was about all of them. The trial was halfway through, but outside the courthouse, it already felt like judgment had been passed. The city was boiling. Protesters camped on the courthouse steps. Murals of Jalen Brooks appeared overnight on underpasses and billboards, with angel wings behind his broken face. Meanwhile, Mercer's home had been vandalized again, this time with red paint poured over his porch and the words "killer" in blue dripping down his garage. Sandra took the baby and moved in with her sister. Mercer was alone. Internal affairs. 7:43 a.m. Detective Carla Ruiz stared at her monitor, the glow casting tired shadows over her face. She hadn't slept in over 30 hours. Her desk was buried in documents, files, recordings, and one thing that refused to leave her mind. The sealed complaint from 2018. A boy, 14 years old. Name, Noah Daniels. She remembered the name vaguely. The case was dismissed before she joined internal affairs. But now she had access. Ruiz pulled the file. It wasn't much, just a short statement, an evidence list, and 2 blurry photographs. The boy's arm, visibly broken. The side of his face, swollen. Arrested for shoplifting. Claimed Officer Mercer slammed his head into a patrol car. But what jumped out wasn't the violence. It was who signed off on the internal review. Captain Vernon, the same man who told her to clear the complaint and move on. She stared at the signature for a long time. Then she stood. It was time to confront him. Captain Vernon's office. The blinds were closed. His desk was pristine. Too pristine. Detective, he said without looking up. You're supposed to be in court. I found the Daniels file, Ruiz said. Vernon paused. That case was closed. Because you buried it. Now he looked at her. Watch what you're implying. I'm not implying. I'm stating Mercer should have been pulled years ago, but he wasn't. Why? Vernon's jaw flexed. We had bigger problems back then. That neighborhood was hell. No one wanted to lose our best boots on the ground. He wasn't a boot. He was a loaded gun. Silence. Finally, Vernon sighed. You want the truth? We all knew Mercer had a temper, but he got results. Kept arrests high. Kept headlines off our backs. The brass liked him. Ruiz stared at him. You're complicit. I did what I had to do to keep the precinct from burning down. She walked out without another word. The anonymous witness. The next morning, a letter arrived at the DA's office. No return address. Inside, a printed email chain between Officer Daniel Mercer and someone under the username Thorn05. The subject line, 1128 Sycamore. Your trap worked. The message told you he'd take the bait. You just had to make the call. Now he got the world watching. Lisa Nolan sat back in her chair. What the hell? She called Ruiz immediately. Is it real? Ruiz asked. I think Mercer knew it was a setup. Someone lured him to that warehouse. Ruiz was quiet for a long moment. Jalen didn't do it, but someone close to him might have. The cousin. Jalen had a cousin. Tarek Owens, 22, known online as Tikizero. College dropout. Aspiring activist. Amateur coder. Hundreds of TikToks exposing police corruption. One of his videos, How to Build a Hidden Camera Rig with Your Phone, had over 2 million views. Ruiz found him at a community center giving a lecture on digital resistance. You think this makes you a hero? She asked him after. I think it makes me a mirror, Tarek replied. I didn't fake anything. Mercer showed who he was. But you baited him. I made a call to dispatch. Anonymous. Said there was suspicious activity at the warehouse. That's it. I didn't touch him. He did the rest. Ruiz wanted to be angry, but she couldn't deny the truth. Without Tarek's trap, none of this would have come to light. He nearly killed your cousin. Tarek looked away. I didn't think he'd go that far. Neither had she. Mercer cracks. Day 17 of the trial. Under cross-examination, Lisa Nolan dropped the email on the table. Mr. Mercer, do you recognize this? Hanley objected. New evidence, Your Honor. Sustained for now. The jury will disregard the exhibit. But Mercer's reaction was already damning. He paled, sweated. During recess, Ruiz approached him in the hallway. You knew it was a setup, she said quietly. Mercer looked at her, eyes dull. They were all setups. What do you mean? Every call, every night. They throw us into war zones and expect saints. You know how many times I've been ambushed? Watch partners bleed out? That boy didn't do anything to you. Mercer leaned closer. His breath reeked of coffee and stress. He looked like someone who had. That's all it takes out there. Ruiz stepped back. There it was, the true poison. Not just anger, but assumption. Instinct over justice. Fear dressed as duty. National frenzy. By now, the story had eclipsed the trial itself. Cable news ran 24/7 coverage. Celebrities wore justice for Jalen shirts. Political candidates turned it into talking points. Protesters clashed with riot cops in 3 major cities. Memes, marches, murals, murders. A counter-protest formed, Stand with Blue. Their rally? Only blocks from Jalen's hospital. The city was ready to erupt. In the eye of the storm, Ruiz walked past the courthouse that night. Wind pushed signs across the pavement like tumbleweeds. The sky was bruised purple. She saw her own reflection in a shattered bus stop ad. How many others had they missed? How many Mercer types were still out there, with clean files and sealed complaints? How many boys never lived long enough to wake up in a hospital? And who had the power to stop it? The courtroom felt heavier now, not with people, but with history. Ruiz could feel in her chest a creeping pressure, like something old and rotten had finally clawed its way to the surface. Mercer's trial had pulled a thread, and now the whole system was unraveling. Everyone was watching, but no one was ready for what came next. Mercer's past, unsealed. Day 20 of the trial. Nolan made her move. "We submit into evidence the sealed disciplinary record of Officer Daniel Mercer," she announced. Hanley sprang to his feet. "Objection. That record was sealed under departmental immunity." Judge Reynolds looked at him sharply. "That immunity has been waived by your own testimony, Mr. Hanley." "Overruled." She turned to the clerk. "Let the record be admitted." The screen lit up behind her. A projector clicked on. Complaint 443C. April 2017. Victim: Noah Daniels, age 14. Photos filled the courtroom. A boy's swollen face, a broken wrist in a cast, a mother's handwritten statement in shaky cursive. He never fought back. He cried the whole time. Gasps rippled through the gallery. One juror began to cry. Another turned away. Then came the second slide. Complaint 622B, August 2019. Victim: Maria Santos. Pregnant. Slammed against a patrol car. Miscarriage 3 days later. Mercer's internal response: "She spat at me. I responded with proportional force." The final slide. Body cam footage suppressed. Marked lost. A note in Vernon's handwriting. No further action required. Officer stressed but stable. Recommend leave denied. Mercer never looked up. Jalen watches. Jalen was wheeled into the courtroom that day. First time since the attack. He sat beside his mother, face still discolored but eyes alert. When the image of Noah Daniels came up, Jalen clenched his fists. That could have been him. It almost was. Nolan asked the judge for a short recess. Jalen asked to speak to Ruiz. "Do you think he'll convict him?" he asked. Ruiz paused. "They should. That's not what I asked." She looked him in the eye. "I don't know." Jalen nodded slowly. "Then I want to say something. To the press." "No, to the jury." The victim speaks. It was unprecedented, but Judge Reynolds allowed it. Jalen took the stand, not as evidence, but as a voice. "I've been listening to this trial for days," he began, his voice low and clear. "And I keep hearing people say things like it's complicated, or he was scared, or mistakes happen. But none of that changes what he did." He looked straight at Mercer. "You looked at me like I didn't matter, like I was already guilty. You beat me because somewhere deep down, you thought no one would care, that no one would believe me. And for a long time, that was true." He paused. "But I lived, and I remember, and now everyone sees." Dead silence. Even Mercer looked shaken. The final witness, Ruiz. On the last day of the trial, Nolan called Detective Carla Ruiz as her final witness. "What did you find in the course of your investigation?" she asked. Ruiz held nothing back. The memos, the sealed files, the complicity of Vernon and others. The culture of silence that allowed Mercer to stay in uniform. She spoke not like a cop, but like a woman trying to rip the infection out of something she once believed in. "In your professional opinion," Nolan asked, "was Daniel Mercer protected from accountability?" "Yes," Ruiz said, over and over again. "By who?" Ruiz looked toward the back of the courtroom. Captain Vernon sat alone. "By his superiors, by the system, by us." The verdict. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The city braced itself. People camped outside the courthouse. National Guard trucks were parked 2 blocks away. The mayor made a live statement urging calm, no matter the result. Finally, verdict day. Mercer stood as the jury foreman read the decision. On the charge of felony assault resulting in grievous bodily harm, guilty. On the charge of excessive use of force under color of law, guilty. On the charge of attempted manslaughter, guilty. The courtroom exploded. Jalen's mother sobbed in his arms. Outside, cheers erupted in waves. Car horns, music, Fireworks. The kind you set off when something impossible finally happens. But Mercer didn't flinch. He stood still, blank, like the verdict had come too late to matter. Aftermath. Mercer was sentenced to 23 years in state prison. Captain Vernon resigned a week later. He was indicted for obstruction and falsifying records. 2 other officers named in the sealed complaints were placed on unpaid leave pending investigation. Ruiz was offered a promotion. She declined it. She transferred to the Civilian Oversight Division instead. The badge stayed in her drawer. She no longer wore it. Jalen gave an interview a month later. It went viral. "I didn't win," he said. "I survived. There's a difference." He started a nonprofit, No More Shadows. Its first initiative? Free legal aid for victims of police violence. Epilogue. Pittsburgh's skyline remained the same. Fog still rolled over the steel bones of its forgotten districts. But something had shifted in the air. Not justice. Not yet. But the truth had been seen. And once seen, it couldn't be unseen. And for the first time in a long time, the city felt like it might just breathe again.